Hey guys, Dave Mann's Laundromat Millionaire here. Today is Sunday, December 6th, 2020. Um, and I was just watching some videos on YouTube, jumping around in the Facebook forums and things like that. And for laundromat owners, of course. Um, and it got me thinking about many times in the forums, and there's also some videos on Facebook or on YouTube, um, where people say that you should never buy an existing laundromat. And the reason for that is it's always the same premise, and I've heard this in the Facebook groups as well, and sometimes even on the CLA forums and things like that. It's touted all the time. Well, why would you buy a laundromat? Who would sell a good, solid cash business? And so the suggestion is that um, anyone that owns a business that is profitable, that makes money, would never sell the business. That's the suggestion by people in the groups and the videos and things like that. And so this is just kind of my retort as someone that's been in the business for a little over 10 years now. Went from a net worth of roughly $60,000 10 years ago, and now I'm a multimillionaire. All through the laundromat business itself. I bought three of my four laundromats. One of them I was able to get for free, which was fantastic. I highly recommend it if you have that opportunity. But I also don't buy the belief and the theory that no one sells, good businesses. So that the insinuation behind most of the comments from individuals is usually something like, you're buying someone else's problem. If it was a great business, they wouldn't sell the business, things like that. And I don't believe that at all based on my consulting over the years, my experience in the industry, and having hundreds of friends across the country that own laundromats that I talk to and network with on a regular basis. I don't believe that's true at all. And so, what I'm going to do in this video today is I'm going to give you 7 reasons that someone who owns a laundromat, but this could really apply to a business, a lot of other businesses too. Why 7 reasons that someone that owns a laundromat would sell that laundromat. Okay? So, number one is a lot of people are attracted to the laundromat industry because they believe it's a passive business. If you're in the business, you definitely understand this. It's sold as a bill of goods from distributors and manufacturers, and different consultants and things like that across the industry. It's sold that our industry is a passive industry, meaning you can just buy a laundromat, show up, collect the coins, and you're not going to have any problems. And nothing is further from the truth. Anyone that's been in the business for any period of time is going to realize very quickly that there is work involved. If you run the business the right way over years, it can become semi-passive. And if you build a big enough team, it can become almost exclusively passive, like the business is for me nowadays. But it took me 8 years to get there and a lot of reinvesting in my businesses. So it's not easy to do, but the reality is that a lot of people are attracted to the laundromat industry because they believe that they're buying a passive investment that they don't have to do any work for. So why would they sell that? Well, they purchase a business believing that it's one thing, and they find out that it's something different. They find out that there's actually work involved. So that's one reason that they would sell the business. That doesn't mean the business isn't profitable. That doesn't mean that it isn't a viable business, that it isn't a valuable business, that it isn't a business that you should acquire and look to run. It might be right for you, but wrong for them. So the number one reason is simply that people are attracted to our industry specifically because they believe it's a passive business. Oftentimes, and it happens a lot, that they get into our industry, they purchase a laundromat or build a laundromat, realize it's not passive, and so they decide to sell the business. So that's one reason that is perfectly logical, that someone would take a valuable asset, a cash business that does make money, and decide to sell it. Say, for example, you're a doctor and you decide that you're going to take some of that money that you make being a doctor and you're going to invest in a passive business like a laundromat. And then you realize that it's not passive at all, that it requires work, there's hassle, headaches, you're getting phone calls all the times. Any of us in the laundromat industry understand exactly what I'm describing, that it's not passive, it does require work. If you're a doctor and you were looking for a passive investment, why wouldn't you liquidate that asset and take your cash and go and try to find another asset or another business that is maybe more passive, or maybe put in the stock market or something like that. So that's the number one reason. Number two reason is someone retires. We're all going to die someday. We're all going to retire. If we don't die, if we don't work until we die, we're going to retire. And so another reason is people do retire from the laundromat industry. They run laundromats. It is work. There is grief, stress, hassles involved with managing employees and things like that. And so it's perfectly reasonable to think that people, and I have friends that have done this, have been very successful, making a lot of money in the laundromat business, and they eventually just decide to hang it up. Well, that doesn't mean they've run their business into the ground. Most of these people have not. They have a very valuable asset that would be great for somebody that was 20, 30, 40 years younger, and that they could make a lot of money from that same asset, that same business. And so they look to liquidate and sell the asset. So the number two reason is someone is retiring. It's pretty common. People retire all the time from their jobs. Why is it unreasonable to think that someone that owns a laundromat, that operates a laundromat, that they wouldn't retire at some point? Number three is a lot of people get into this industry thinking the business is one thing. We talked about it being passive, but a lot of people get in the industry maybe with a little bit more of a heads up, in the sense of they, how can I say this? They get into the business and they understand that that it's maybe not passive. They get in the business believing that it's semi-passive, which it can be for the right person. But the reality is there's still a lot of stress and headaches involved in that. And so the number three reason that someone would sell a laundromat is they're simply tired of the headaches. Maybe they're not retiring. Maybe they are going to take their money and put it into another business. But they're just simply tired of if you have a 24-hour laundromat, you can and will get calls in the middle of the night. And it's one thing to do that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But the truth of the matter is we all get tired of that after a while. And some of us just decide to give up, liquidate our asset, and sell it to somebody that isn't tired of those headaches, that's willing to take on those headaches, knowing full well that that's what they're getting involved in. And so that happens all the time. Number four is kind of a combination of 1 and 3, if you will. There's many people that simply decide to liquidate the asset. Maybe they have a child that's sick. Maybe they have a spouse that's sick. Maybe they've come into financial hardships through other ways. Maybe they lost money in the stock market. Maybe they borrowed money from someone that is now calling the note due. And in order to, maybe keep their house in some cases, they have to liquidate that asset. People have stocks that are valuable and they sell them all the time. Sometimes they try to sell them at the top of the market. And so just because someone is selling a laundromat, they're liquidating their assets, or that specific asset, doesn't mean it's a bad asset for you. It may just mean that they need the cash. Let's say you have I have a laundromat that's worth over $1 million, and I have some other laundromats that are worth $200,000 to $400,000. So let's say I have those businesses, they're very valuable businesses to me, but for whatever reason, I come into a situation where I need a few $100,000. I'm not going to make that in a month from my laundromats, but if I need that money quickly, maybe to help my family or something, my elderly parents or something like that, that's a way to get some cash, is to liquidate one of your assets. People liquidate assets all the time, for specific reasons. And owning a laundromat, a business, is no different. So a lot of times people just fall on hard times from other aspects of their life, and they need that infusion of cash. They need a significant amount. People also, liquidate them to buy a second home, to buy a beach house. They might not be getting out of the business entirely, but they might be say, well, I have 4 laundromats. I'm going to start to slow down. I'm going to sell one of them, get the cash from that, laundromat, and I'm going to buy a beach house, or I'm going to go on an exotic vacation, or what have you. So the number 4 reason is just to liquidate their cash, to free it up to do something else with it. Number 5 is they get bored. People in all industries. I have friends that are entrepreneurs, thousands of them all over the country. In fact, I know people in other countries internationally, some in the laundromat business, some not in the laundromat business. And the reality is, us entrepreneurs, us business owners, some of us become very passionate about one specific industry, and we stay in it our entire lives. But that's not really the norm. The norm is that business owners, entrepreneurs are very creative people. We're problem solvers, and we want a challenge. And so a lot of times people get into an industry and they learn the industry, they perfect the industry in a lot of ways, and they just simply get bored with it. And so they want to move on to something, a new challenge. And so they sell their business, take that money, and maybe go buy a restaurant or open a car dealership or what have you. Once again, if you're the person buying a laundromat from somebody that just simply got bored with the industry after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that doesn't mean that that asset isn't a valuable asset and that you shouldn't, be purchasing that asset. Number five is a lot of commercial, or I'm sorry, number six is a lot of commercial property owners, landlords. A lot of times they research and learn that a laundromat can be a great tenant in their property, in their building. And so a lot of them will build a laundromat versus trying to attract someone like me who would build a laundromat. A lot of commercial property owners will make that upfront investment. They'll get the business off the ground. They'll get it in the black. And after 2 or 3 years, they'll sell that business to somebody. And now they have a long-term tenant in their commercial property. So they built the business initially with the plan of getting it to profitability, getting it to a stage where it's a cash cow, for lack of a better term, and then selling the asset for a multiple. And so if you buy a laundromat that's, throwing off $100,000 a year in cash, and you pay $400,000 for that asset, then you're getting a 25%, cash on cash return on investment. And if you do that, that's a pretty good investment in most worlds. And so why would the commercial property owner do it? Well, because they're a commercial property owner. Their primary business isn't being in the laundromat business. They were just trying to fill vacancies. And a lot of commercial property owners are entrepreneurs. And so they're creative, they're problem solvers. If they have space vacant in their building and they can't attract people to the building, then they make the investment themselves. I have friends that are in commercial property, and I know ones that have opened gas stations, cell phone businesses, and laundromats are no exception in their buildings, with the sole purpose of running them for a few years and then selling them so that now they have a long-term tenant. So that's another reason. And depending on your situation and what you're comfortable with as far as a cash on cash return on investment, it's entirely possible that that could be a great investment for you, a great investment for the commercial property owner, but they never planned on being in the business long term. It was a short term investment for them that they planned on liquidating because they were just really ultimately looking for a tenant. So that's reason number six. The commercial property owner from the very beginning got into the business for no other reason than to build the business, to have a commercial tenant, and to sell the business a few years later. That actually happens all the time. I actually deal with some consulting clients of mine who are commercial property owners, and they approach me for that exact reason. They approach me telling me this is their strategy. And as a consultant, I tell them all the time, a laundromat can be a great investment, but if you don't want to be an operator and you just want to be a commercial property owner, then this can be a great strategy for you, because laundromats can be fantastic long-term tenants, or what they call anchor tenants in a lot of cases. And so it's a great situation for the commercial property owner, but it's also a great situation for the person that buys the laundromat. Number five, or I'm sorry, I'm getting all out of order here. Number seven, and the last one, is the laundromat owner that's selling the business, they overpaid for it. Unfortunately, that happens all the time. It happens all the time that, what my friend Jordan Berry over at Laundromat Resource calls laundromills, which I think is a great name. There are business brokers and clients out there that what they do is their sole purpose in life is selling a business, selling a laundromat for a higher multiple than it should command. And so, unfortunately, there are a lot of suckers out there that will, don't do their homework. They don't know what they're doing. And I shouldn't call them suckers, because these are good people. They just don't know any better. They don't have the education to make a sound financial decision. And so they purchase the business, and a lot of times they just decide to cut their losses. They're just in I didn't realize my dog was in the background. Sorry about that. But they're in a situation where they purchase a laundromat. Let's say you purchase a laundromat for $400,000 that's only worth $200,000. And you purchase the laundromat, you run it for a year or so, you realize you overpaid for it, you're not making any money. quite often those people will cut their losses. They'll turn around, sell it for what it's actually worth, which is $200,000, and they'll sell it. They'll sell it to somebody for 200,000, and they just take 200,000 on the chin. They cut their losses. They have a negative taste in their mouth about the industry. But the reality is that the person buying it for 200,000, if it's worth 200,000, and they've done their calculations and they're getting a good return on their investment, it doesn't matter that the person before them paid 400,000. That's not what they're paying. They're paying 200,000. And so it can be a phenomenal investment for the next person in line. Even though the first person got run through a laundromat and overpaid for the business, the reality is that down the road, somebody will find that equilibrium. They will find that situation where, they'll do the proper evaluation of the business and determine what it's actually worth based on their investment. And so they will purchase it for what is a fair valuation, and it will become a very profitable business for them. So once again, those are the 7 reasons that you shouldn't listen to people that are saying that no one ever sells a valuable a cash business that throws off cash. Because the reality is those are 7 reasons. And there are many more, but I didn't want this to turn into a 45 or an hour long video. But there are many more reasons, but those are really the 7 that I could just come up with off the top of my head based on 10 years in the industry and a lot of experience, a lot of friends in the business. So hopefully this helps you all a little bit to understand that there are valuable laundromats out there that can be purchased. The key is not overpaying. The key is knowing how to value them. And if you don't know how to do this, do your homework, do your research, or find a consultant or a mentor in some way that can help you value these businesses so that you don't overpay for them, so that you don't get into the business under the illusion that the business is passive when it's not, so that you don't get tired of those headaches. You don't quickly have a desire to liquidate it. You don't get bored with the business. Go in it with the right mindset and understand what you're getting involved in. Pay the right multiple for them, and it can be a phenomenal investment for you. Once again, Dave Menz, Laundromat Millionaire in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have 4 laundromats right now. I'm currently building my 5th in a commercial property that I'm in the process of purchasing. And of the 5 that I'll eventually have, 4 of them I have paid for. The one of them, my second laundromat, I did get for free. So it is possible to get laundromats for free. There are people, putting videos out there, people talking about it on the forums, and it absolutely can happen. I know other people that do it. It's a very viable way to acquire acquire a laundromat. But the reality is it's not the only way. So anytime that anyone's talking about something in a vacuum and they're saying this is the only way to do something, they're a lot of times they, I don't want to speak to their ulterior motives. They may be very good people. And maybe it's just that they passionately believe that's the best way to acquire a laundromat. And obviously, if you can get a laundromat for free in a fantastic location with good infrastructure in place, that's a phenomenal investment. You should do that. But that doesn't mean that that's the only healthy way to get into the laundromat business. Because I can tell you right now that of the 5 stores that I will have in a few months, if I had only acquired one of them, I would still be working in my full-time job, trying to make a living, running my laundromat on the side. And I certainly wouldn't be doing this full-time. I wouldn't be basically retired at 40 years old. And I also wouldn't be in a situation where I've taken my net worth from 10 years ago of roughly $60,000 to today, 10 years later, and having a net worth of multi-million dollars. So it is possible to do one, either, or the both. Just make sure you have an education, make sure you do your homework, and make sure that you have the right people on your side, people that have the right knowledge and experience and expertise, because this can be done, and the laundromat business can be a fantastic business. Once again, Dave Menz, Laundromat Millionaire, Cincinnati, Ohio, on Sunday, December 6, 2020. And the last thing I'll ask you all is if you've watched this video and you enjoyed it, please do me a favor and like the video. Please subscribe to my channel so that you'll see my other videos. And be sure to click the alert button at the top there, because that'll alert you when I drop other videos on my channel. And hopefully I'll be able to help you out in that way. So you all have a great weekend. Take care. Thanks.